Hola everybody, and we are back again for our last part of the Geography Social Science Grade 9, which is Sustainable and Unsustainable Resources. A special welcome to our neurodiverse brains makes schoolwork all in one fun and easy to understand. Now, the last part of our social science geography in grade 9 is how we use resources in a country, sustainable and unsustainable. Meaning, how can we protect our resources from total depletion? So, let's start taking a look at my definition as always. So, the definition of sustainable resources is to create a balance between what the environment needs and what the humans on the planet, the community needs. There need to be a balance. So how are we going to remember that? NNP. The need of the environment and the need of the people in the country or on the planet in a balance. Now, if we're talking about that, we're first going to take a look at renewable and non-renewable resources. A renewable resource in a country is something or a resource that can renew itself after being depleted. For example, a tree can grow new leaves. A tree can go back. Animals can breed again by themselves, like fish, right? They can get more. So that is something that is called renewable resources. It can renew itself. Non-renewable resources, however, is when it's done, it's done. It's finished, it's over. It cannot renew itself. Let's think about coal for electricity. Now, we mine coal, yes? Now, if all the coal mines are depleted, we do not have any coal for electricity, and the coal doesn't jump in the ground, poops, overnight. It takes years and years for that coal to form again underground for us to mine it. So this is why we need to use it sustainable. So renewable resources, guys, we have to take care of, and non-renewable resources, we have to implement sustainable techniques and technology to not deplete them. Now, let's quickly take a look at what do we tend to deplete. Number one, we are going to take a look at overfishing. Yes, we are abusing our fish. And number two, we are going to take a look at overgrazing. Yes, we are eroding our soil. Yes, and there goes our food. Okay, so to be able to sustain a country's resources, it's a mixed effort between the environment and the government and the people. So the government needs to put decisions and methods in place to educate the community and the people to use resources sustainable. So the government needs to supply things like solar power, wind power, which we will see in a minute, all right? The government needs to place laws on overfishing, all right? The government needs to implement education on how to do grazing correctly, stop the people from eroding the soil, get consumers, businesses and individuals to demand eco-friendly products and reduce our carbon footprint. Now, if we take a look at this little picture, right, which says it's a hunger strike to protest against unsustainable fishing. That is something that happens now. As you can see, this is a classic example of illegal fishing that is called trawling. Now, trawling is exactly like this. Now, the fishing boats are floating on the surface of the ocean, but what lies beneath are huge nets, right? Huge nets that they drag behind the boat as it seems that they're just cruising. Now, and this trawling that we call it captures an illegal amount of fish and also killing the marine life because a lot of whales and dolphins and sharks get trapped in these nets, alright, and then they die. And then it kills our ocean and marine ecosystem. So how can we stop all this overfishing? If we're going to take a look at overfishing first. Number one, the government needs to give a quota. Now, a quota is a specific amount that you can fish or that one company or fisherman can fish per day. Now, number one, that's not only for sustainable fishing and to prevent overfishing, but that's also to avoid job loss for communities that relies on fishing for their self-sustainability and for their income. Number two, certain species must be protected and not allowed to fish. Number three, there must be size restriction to the size of the fish and the size of the nets and the size of the boats. Alright. Also, non-fishing areas and fishing sanctuaries should be in place. Also, illegal methods like trawling, can you see here, should be given a fine when caught. And obviously, these things need to be implemented by the World Health Organization, the WHO, as well as the government and the officials that protects marine life, which I do not think happens in our country, but okay, that is what needs to happen. So if you can see here, overfishing impacts 27% of the global fish and marine ecosystem. And what is the main cause of overfishing and illegal fishing is trawling. Can you see that? Alright. And then obviously the use of technology. Big fishing boats have radars and they can track big schools of fish. Alright. That in the past days weren't there. And especially the size of the fishes and the species that is not allowed to be caught should be restricted, monitored and fined. Now let's go to grazing. How can we prevent overgrazing? Now we prevent overgrazing by using two methods. Alright. The first method is called rotational grazing. The second method is called strip grazing. And then I also have fodder. Fodder means livestock food. So how are we going to remember fodder? FF, livestock food. Now, rotational grazing and strip grazing is more or less the same thing. Alright. This is when farmers are dividing their pastures, their fields, into blocks or strips with removable, means I can move it, electric fences or barriers or fences. Alright. Now the difference between strip grazing and rotational grazing lies in the duration. So when a farmer sees that dry patches of land begins to show, that means the soil is beginning to erode. He will move his livestock, his cattle or his sheep into block 1. Alright. Now rotational grazing means they can graze here for 2 to 4 weeks. And then you will move them to block 2 for 2 to 4 weeks. Then to block 3 for 2 to 4 weeks. Allowing the last 2 blocks, 3 blocks, 4 blocks to recover. Strip grazing, however, is using the same method, but in a shorter time. only maximum of 3 days for strip grazing. Alright? The same method, the same blocks, alright? But only a limited amount of time. So in strip grazing, they use faster rotational, while in rotational grazing, the method is the same, but the duration is longer. And that is how we can sustain grazing. Now, the last thing is, many farmers are using fodder, animal feed. So during the summer season or the rainy seasons, they collect dry grass and they will mix it with salt and vitamin, and during the winter months or the dry months, they will put this animal food, the fodder, in cribs for the animals to eat. Then they don't need to erode the soil in the dry months digging for food. So this is how we can implement sustainable grazing. Rotational grazing, strip grazing, and fodder, animal feed. Righty. Now we're going to take a look at the humans. What can we do? Individuals, businesses, consumers, and the government to use our resources sustainable. Now, number one, what can we do and the government? We can implement the use of solar power and the use of turbine power to replace our country's electricity and energy system to use less coal burning, releasing carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, increasing our carbon footprint, alright, and increasing the risk of depletion of the coal for electricity. So now we use the sun that comes natural, and we use the wind that comes natural to create sustainable energy and electricity to avoid depletion. And education on how to use our water, our plants, our electricity wisely and unwisely. Alright. Now, consumers can demand eco-friendly stuff. Right. Eco-friendly containers, packaging, no plastic, stuff that can be recycled. Yes. Alright. Our humans can recycle as well. Right. And now we're going to take a look at the carbon footprint. Now, what on earth is our carbon footprint? Look at my little feet. No. That is the amount of carbon dioxide, CO2. Now, CO2, carbon dioxide, that a country releases in the air, and this is measured in tons. So every year, every second year, the World Organization will come and they will measure a country's carbon footprint with a little device. And then they will give us a status. If you have a red footprint, that means, you have a very big carbon footprint. If you have a green footprint or a blue footprint, that means you are in the clear. You are not polluting the air by unnecessary carbon dioxide coming from fabrics and factories, cars, any kind of released gases into the air, and that released gases we call fossil fuels. Now, remember, FFF. Fossil fuels are stuff that burns and release fumes in the air that contains a high amount of CO2, carbon dioxide. So, a country needs to limit that by using public transport, encourage walking or cycling to work, encourage the less burning of fossil fuels and the more use of solar power and wind turbines to create energy for us to get our green carbon footprint or our blue carbon footprint and not stick to the red carbon footprint. We do not want red feet. Yes? Right. Now, let's see what does food science and technology has to offer. Now, a country aims for one thing, and that is food security. Now, how are we going to remember this? Remember, AAF, availability, access, food preparation. So, if your country is food secure, it means your availability is good. There's enough food available for everybody in the country. As you can see here, the shelves are not empty. Now, access. Everyone in the country has access to get the food. They are living in areas where food is available. The food is at a reasonable price to afford, alright? And food preparation. The people has a good knowledge of how to prepare my food with good hygiene and not wasting nutrition. Now, oopsie daisy, a shame. If the country is in a state of food security, we remember UNF. Undernourished, malnourished, and food illnesses. Alright. So if your country is in a food insecurity, number one, undernourished means there's not enough food available for every person in the country. So there's people that has the means to get the food, but there is no food to get. Look, the shelves are empty. Alright. Then malnourished means, okay, now there is enough food available, but people can't access the food because of ridiculous prices, inflation. Maybe they live in rural parts where the nearest shop is 200 kilometers from them. So although there is availability, they do not have access to the food. And then food illnesses. The incorrect preparation of food that causes bacteria, cholera, salmonella, and diseases like you can get, for example, diarrhea. You can get stomach viruses. You can get food illnesses because you prepare the food incorrectly or you got bad hygiene. Alright, so a country always aims to be food secure. Access, availability, and food preparation. Now, we go over to my science and technology part. How does science and technology contribute to sustainable resources? Now, number one, we use commercial farming, factory farming, and genetic modification. Okay, so GM stands for genetic modification. Now, as you can see here, factory farming and commercial farming means business farmings. Alright, so this is not a farm owned by one person. No. This is a corporation. A few people, a corporate body owns that farm. And I can put a lot of livestock in small spaces, increasing productivity with the use of machines. Right? If we take a look at my chickens here, they are all in cages and they are under battery lights, meaning the temperature is 24/7 perfect for them to lay eggs in rows all the time. Same with a milk factory. The cows are in a small cage and they are feeding the whole day. And instead of milking the cows, we plug in machines now that goes and within 1 or 2 hours you get 3,000 liters of milk. Now, and then a few hours go by and the cows just eat again. No fresh air, no walking in the fields. Now, we plug in the machines again and there it goes. So that is commercial farming and factory farming. Genetic modification, as you can see here, guys, is when we as humans create plants and animals in a lab. Now, we are interfering with the natural development of plants and animals. We develop them in laboratoriums, in tubes. And yeah, this is unnatural. No? Imagine you are preventing a tube. No. So genetic modification means we modify that specific plant or animal to be kind of a super animal, a super plant, because then they are resistant against pesticides, plant poison, and herbicides, plant illnesses and animal illnesses. Alright, so they like super plants and super animals. And that is genetic modification. We interfere with the natural development of plants and animals, creating super plants and super animals that is unnaturally resistant to bacteria, illnesses, pesticides, herbicides, and that increase productivity. Alright. Now, how can we maintain by ourselves, right, using technology and logic, like the neurodiverse brain does, to manage soil appropriately? Now, we can do something that we call crop rotation. Now, crop rotation is when you take a piece of land and you plant different crops on the same piece of land. This season you plant maize. The next season on the same piece of land you're going to plant soya. The next season on the same piece of land you're going to plant beans. Because each individual crop puts nutrition in the ground naturally. Maize are rich in calcium, so it puts calcium into the ground. Soy are rich in nitrogen, so it puts nitrogen naturally into the ground. Beans are rich in iron and protein, so it puts iron and protein naturally in the ground. So we do not have to use that much artificial fertilizer. Yes? And then this little diagram, lastly, very important. My steps on how I can manage my land effectively. Number one, I can plant trees on the perimeters of my land. And what does it do? It breaks the wind from blowing away the soil. Right. Number two, I can make drain ditches, right, to prevent excess water from flooding the land so that the excess water can flow away. Number three, I can plant larger crops in between smaller crops, as you can see here, because the one protects the other. Alright. Number four, I can try uphill planting. Uphill planting, yes, because the uphill planting prevents water from smashing away, and ice and snow and wind from smashing away, all the plants. And then the last thing, can you see this little orange stuff here? I can use dry leaves and animal manure. Now, manure is just a fancy word for cow poo. Now, to fertilize my soil naturally without using artificial fertilizer. And this is the important diagram on how I can manage soil. So let's quickly see. Again, let's take it from the top. Sustainable development. An effort between the humans and the government to keep the needs of the environment and the needs of the humans in balance. Renewable and non-renewable resources, sources that can renew themselves after they deplete, and non-renewable resources, if it's done, It's done. It's up. It's gone. All right. What can we do to protect overfishing, prevent trawling, and the methods that used to fish by quotas, size restriction, legal and illegal fishing, creating fines, and number 1, preventing job losses due to manufactural fishing and trawling. Grazing. Take care of rotational grazing. Yup, yup, yup. Strip grazing. Yup, yup, yup. And providing fodder for the animals. Jawel. Humans. Our humans, what can we do? Solar power, wind power, use of water wisely, reduce our carbon footprint by preventing burning too many fossil fumes or fossil fuels that creates fuel and fumes that contains carbon dioxide in the air. Food security, access, availability, and food preparation. Food insecurity, undernourished, malnourished, and food illnesses. And then farming, factory farming, commercial farming, genetic modification, interfering with the naturals, and my soil management. Please study. This is sustainable resources in a nutshell. Comment your questions, hit me with subscribe, and if I see you again, we're getting to history. Be good, be safe, and be wise, and manage your soil.